Hey, good morning and welcome to Cyber Warriors. This is Dane Deutsch and
Gerkin.
hey, good morning, Kurt. How are you?
Hey, doing well on a Friday morning. It looks like we're gonna have a little sunshine, and we haven't seen sunshine.
Yeah, the sun has been a stranger for a little bit, quite a few days. Yesterday it came out, peeked its head out yesterday for a while, so that was nice. Yeah. Hey, so this morning I thought we'd start with a verse from Proverbs 19, verse 21. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. It is the Lord's purpose that prevails. That's pretty amazing.
Yes, it is, and that kind of leads me to ignore prayer. I was reading a devotion this morning too, though, but basically, what Jesus is saying, if you're gonna follow him, you have to deny things and take up your cross and follow him. And people will think that's a huge sacrifice. It is, but it's more of a surrender. So I think all of us need to keep in mind to be able to surrender because really we can't we can't do this life by ourselves. We can't. We
So, yep, we have a good shepherd to take care of us too. Let's start with prayer then, Kurt.
yeah, I can do that. Father God, we invite you here. We know that when two or more are together, that you is here with us. And we love you and appreciate you, trust you, help us to be full of your spirit so that we're equipped to serve others. Thank you for the opportunity to use this type of technology to discuss your path and purpose for each one of us. And once again, we for this day, this is the day that you have made for us. You've made a perfect world for us, and we messed things up. So please help us with walk in your son's name. Today.
Man, we mess things up a lot, don't we? In this day and age, I'm trying to find healthy things to be able to like take care of myself and my family with. And one of those things I ran across recently, we're going to talk today and think about water. So I wanted to bring this up because I thought this was really interesting to see how this whole concept in terms of what do we do with our water? We don't even really think about it. Even recently, when I'm talking about brushing my teeth, do I use the city water that has fluoride in it and other contaminants? Or I use bottled water, which has the plastic contaminants? Oh my goodness. These are things I never used to think about. And I was like, holy cow. So today I wanted to go back and just look at, hey, one of the things we don't think about a lot is what kind of toothpaste do we use, right? And Kathy and we picked out some toothpaste last year that we've been using. And then I use a wooden toothbrush because I not to use the plastic, right? And the plastic bristles. And so this wooden brush has boar hair on it, right? For its bristles. And but the toothpaste is just amazing because some of the main name brands have like mercury and lead and cadmium in it, different types of metals that are not good for us. And even arsenic. And we just go grab the newest stuff on the shelf, the stuff that's name brand anyway, and that's what we buy, right? So we started looking into this. So I want to share my screen and just give you an idea of what I actually have found here. Can you see that okay? All right. So in this particular instance, you can see at the top of this that this is a comparative chart of toxicant levels, okay, and found in popular toothpaste products. So as you go down here, this first one is all green because they didn't detect any lead, cadmium, mercury, or arsenic, right? But then the first five are those that are the healthiest. Dr. Brown's baby toothpaste, Kids Spry tooth gel with xylitol, Pegasus toothpaste in foam form, Orajel training toothpaste, and then Messence toothpaste. So some of these are made in the USA and some are not. Let me just turn on my highlighter here real quick and see if I can point those out a little bit more for us. So when we look at this, the idea here is that, hey, does this have fluoride or cadmium, lead, mercury? And all of these particular ones are a no, they don't. You can see that kind of across the top here. But the lead, the cadmium, the mercury, and the arsenic are non-existent. But as soon as you get to the next level, it's interesting because the next level right away starts to add 5 parts per billion and up in some of these categories, the lead, cadmium, mercury, and arsenic, right? So if you look, you can see that there's quite a number here, but they're not well-known brands, right? Radius, Risk, Boca, which is what I use, Boca Nano Hydroxyapatite, Attitude, Knobs, Wellata, Truvani, Kinder, never heard of those before. Botox, Dr. Britt, Kids Mineral, toothpaste. Never feed your good guys toothpaste. Wow. So none of those are familiar to me. And I had to go do some research and figure out that, hey, Boca is one of the top brands of toothpaste that are safest for us. If you look at this across the board, is it for kids? Yes, it's for kids. Is it made USA? Yes, it's made USA. Is it fluoride? No fluoride. But it has a 27.4 parts per billion lead. It has no cadmium. Mercury-wise, it has some mercury in it, 8.2. And does it have any arsenic? It has no arsenic. At least the one type does not. The orange cream, which is what we use. So it's healthier, but still not totally 100% healthy. And as you go down this, it just gets worse and worse. So that was 5 parts per billion and up for those toothpaste. Then the lead levels of 100 parts per billion and up are down below. You can see these. And then there are that 200 parts per billion and above. And then single ingredient hydroxyapatite and single ingredient calcium carbonate. And that's where most of our name brands fall. So yes, some of them are made in the United States, but do they have fluoride? Yes, some of them have fluoride. You can see fluoride here, yes. You know, almost every area of our lives, we've got to be thinking, what is it that's healthy for us and what is not? So in this particular instance, it just happened to be toothpaste. And I thought that was a really good lead in to the whole water aspect, because not just the water is toxic per se, but even the things that we just use on a day-to-day basis, so we don't even think about it. Plastic toothbrushes instead of wood toothbrushes, plastic bristles instead of boar hair, natural things that come out of our own environment. So thoughts on that, Kurt?
Our, my father, I grew up in a small town. My father was a dentist in a small town. Well, there were probably only 3 or 4 dentists in the whole Broward County area of Dane County, Bud County, Gilbert County. And so he saw a lot of people and treated a lot of people. And what I'm concerned is that while they both basically directed their efforts based upon big organizations like the American Dental Association, they're the ones that recommended fluoride. And fluoride is not in cute like at that time, like 1964 or something. And so the dentist recommended about the fluoride, that it was best for people to know. If you don't know what's with cavities, hearing, little children, and on high remedy, thought that he found for fluoride. Why would you discovered that it's in toothpaste? And if you sleep one out after breaking your teeth, you'll play because it's out. Now, however, alternatives to that too were, for instance, hydrogen peroxide. Gargling and brushing, I use hydrogen peroxide. Well, because it's kind of a wonder drug. The more you investigate hydrogen peroxide, the important thing,
I've heard that too. Yeah.
I need that go with it. You might feel that I'm in debt for there are packages, there are started, but I think if you did, if you were your list, if somehow we can post that search or
Absolutely. When we post this video, I'll put I'll put it as an attachment or else a link to particular place where they can find that information. Yeah. It's important that people dig in and research on their own. Don't just take what we're saying for granted or at face value right away. Just go and look it up for yourself. And when I was teaching at the university, I told the students all the time, don't take everything I say as gospel truth, so to speak, because I want you to go out and research it and to define for yourself what you're finding in your research and then what is true and what's not, right? In this day and age, not enough people do their own research. And so people just take what someone else they trust says, but that's not necessarily always right for that person.
Yeah, and the other comment I make about dental health, when I look at our grandparents' era, pre-World War II, there were a lot of dentures. If you look at that generation, my grandfather's teeth would be in the top, up in the bathroom when we would go get it. I think dentists like my father saw that they were pulling teeth and giving people dentures, and it really bothered him because there were a lot of issues when it's not right, the jawbone or whatever, when you lose your teeth, things start to go downhill. And having teeth now, he thought to increase the enamel and teeth, so I won't have to be pulling so many teeth and making so many blunders. But that's outside comment. On that particular generation, a lot you don't see the dentures today. What you see now is an implant. If they don't like the teeth or whatever, there's an implant, which is not always the best thing to do.
And we just had in Ladysmith, where you're nearby, they just had a big vote at the city council the people voted during the general election, I think, or one of their elections, to make sure that we didn't have fluoride in the water there anymore. And then what, 2 weeks later, the council overturned what the public actually voted on and said, no, we're going to keep doing the fluoride in the water. So the people had spoken, but the council overruled it. Very interesting.
Example of people voting on political issues instead of health issues. Instead of looking and following facts and following truth, basically there's a narrative out there based upon politics. You're following when looking at the health issues. And all you can do is present the data and present the facts, and then people have to be open. They're going to stick with a certain narrative, and there's a consequence of reaching out. But I think where are we? Municipality letting out the fluoride, like Florida right now, it's just said, hey, no more fluoride in municipalities. And as that starts, we hear a lot of print. I think you'll see, I think you'll see Ladysmith fluoride still have the issue. And changing a lot of this is, will document. One, people by more of education, people, city councilmen, changing it out.
Recently, especially, and I'm glad you mentioned Florida with their getting rid of fluoride statewide in all of the city councils of municipalities. Now, I don't know about Disney because Disney has its own property and they're able to call their own shots, so to speak, because I understand. But bottom line is that I think it was the actual Surgeon General, and maybe that's not his title, for just Florida came out and is the one who really proposed that we get rid of fluoride because of the health issues that are associated with it. So I think there needs to be more people, and people have said this for a long time, but one of the things that I saw yesterday is I think RFK, and it's hard to tell now if something's AI or not, right? But I think this one was because I saw it on more than one post, which he came out and said, the conspiracy theorists have been right all along in many things, and one of them is, and then he went into that piece of it, but so many people just get shut down right away because they hear somebody else say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. My understanding is that was actually a term that the CIA started in the 60s to shut down all these things so that people would not argue or go investigate the truth, right? So really, we have to start to quit like putting people in a box, labeling the box and saying you're a conspiracy theorist. We need to say, where did you get your fact? Let me look at it and do our homework. But we've got so many people now, especially after the vaccinations, that are not, they're more laid back and they're more apt to not take action on something now than they were even before, which from some of the posts that I've seen actually was by design so that people wouldn't actually rise up and take action against some of the things that the government was doing. And we think the government's always helping us. And we've been taught that, but they're not necessarily. EPA, the FDA, and looking at some of these statistics this week for one of the big three-digit agencies, they hadn't actually changed their EPA, in this case the CPA, they hadn't actually changed their guidelines for 20 years. What is the minimal threshold of acceptable health? We just say, oh, they must know, so they're doing it, so we go by it. But they haven't changed it for 20 years. 20 years, my goodness, we've gone through a lot. We've seen a ton of changes. So what should we be doing with that? What do you think about that, Kurt? If we apply that to the water situation, using fluoride as a segue into that, where are we at? And oh my goodness, where do we go?
One determined over 5 years, when they're unable to convince you of a false narrative, they try to confuse you. And they'll confuse you with information that makes absolutely no sense. But
Sure.
if you want to confuse, and if you get focused on confusion, different you start questioning yourself. So you really have to stick with the fact, stick with it. Even though the culture is not popular, because right now we're dealing with created all then a culture, a popularity of culture instead of popularity of the word king. You got to stick with scripture. You got to stick with Bible. So, but anyway, I'll let
It's a good foundation if we go back to scripture and take that as a foundation. We have something we know that's truth that we can actually springboard off of into other areas to try and improve quality of life and health and all of that kind of thing. With that in mind, let me go back and just share another screen here in terms of, let's see here. Yep, this one right here. And this is Rice Lake Waterworks. Can you see that okay, Kurt?
one.
So one of the things that I was doing in terms of just trying to figure out what's our quality of water like. Lately, I've been looking into what are the good water purifiers. My goodness, your head could just explode trying to figure out which is the right purifier. But we know there are plastics in our water. A lot of these water purification companies have jugs in plastic. Is that good plastic, bad plastic? Is it going to create more plastics in my life and in my body? I don't know. And those are the things I've been trying to dig out. So this EWG site, ewg.org, actually has a water database of all of the measurements that are taken. And this data here comes from 2015 to 2023. And the source is groundwater. And now we serve probably over 9,000, but at that time it was 8,300. It's interesting to see that they're saying that 4 contaminants exceed EWG's health guidelines. Now, right away, the question is, who's EWG and why do they have any authority, right? So that's an interesting thing. So sometimes when we're just chatting with each other, it's important to help other people know, look, this is the question here. First of all, who is EWG? Do they have authority? Do they have background to really say what they're saying? But it's interesting because if one of the things they're doing is even questioning things. If we look on the right-hand side of this, it says legal does not necessarily equate to safe. So getting a passing grade from the federal government doesn't mean the water meets the latest health guidelines. And the legal limits for contaminants in tap water haven't been updated in almost 20 years. So the best way to ensure clean tap water is keep pollution out of source water in the first place, but we know they're not. So how do we measure that? And here, just in my little town of Rice Lake, they've got 12 contaminants. And you can see that chromium, nitrate, radium, they're all pretty high. Those are contaminants that were detected And then they're suggesting that you use a filter in
Mm.
order to be able to get rid of those contaminants. But a lot of those filters are very expensive. Some of them get rid of some things. Like, for instance, I can take a bath in the morning, I can smell the chlorine or I can smell the ammonia. And so then you start looking at these water purifiers. Do they get rid of fluoride? Do they get rid of chlorine? Do they get rid of ammonia? I think I shared with you about my goldfish. I had 3 goldfish I bought at Walmart one time for the kids when they were little. Brought them home. 2 died within a couple of weeks, but the third one was pretty hardy little goldfish, and I was using distilled water, so I didn't have to pipette drops of pH to get it to the pH balance in there for the goldfish, and we were doing fine. But one day, I had to leave. We had to leave quickly as a family. We were going somewhere. We were late already, and then I realized, "Oh, man, the fish tank is, like, half full. That's not good. I better put some water in there," and I thought, "All right, I don't have any more distilled water. I ran out. I'll just put some in from the tap and then pipette the pH balance, right? And I'll balance it and then he'll be good." I no sooner started to pour the tap water into the tank and the fish right away went into convulsions and died. I didn't even have time to pipette something in. So since then, I have not drank any of the Rice Lake water unless it's actually purified or I'm using some kind of filter for it because that was enough for me. And just being able to sit in the bathtub in the morning and smell the chlorine or smell the ammonia, because the largest organ in our body is what? The skin. And anything that touches the skin can be absorbed into the body and into the bloodstream. So these kinds of things where we think we're trusting our government, and of course, some of these people like Rice Lake Waterworks, those people are my neighbors, right? Some of them that work there. So they're doing the best they can or with what they have and what they know. But you and I are trying with our Cyber Warriors channel here to get out to people and help them understand that, hey, don't be afraid because somebody calls you a conspiracy theorist. Don't be afraid to do the right thing at the right time for the right reason, right? Lead with character and not necessarily because it's the easy or convenient way to go. So I know you have lots of thoughts on the water stuff, but I wanted to bring that out as a segue from the toothpaste and brushing your teeth. I love it that you're using hydrogen peroxide. So take it away, Kurt. What do you think?
Yeah, what I would add is I can remember being in elementary school, and then we had a tour of the wastewater treatment facility. And this operator, good friend of ours, was so proud of how we got the wastewater. In fact, is what it was. So proud of it. At the end of the tour, he took us through the different filtration systems and that sort of thing. And at the end, he took a sample of what they were putting into the river, into the effluent into the river, and he drank it. He said, "Hey, I'm so proud of this that I'm going to have a glass of this water, sewage water that we just used out being treated." If that went over, yeah, I'm in 70, so that was like 50 some years, 60 years ago, whatever. At that time, the regulation was based upon insoluble organics. In other words, the key was to get rid of whatever you could almost visually see in water. That's insoluble. Now, what's occurred over the past 60 years is this soluble organic component of in the water that you can't see. You can't see, you can't taste. Well, in some cases, you taste like chlorine. You have to realize that chlorine was key in third world countries and even this country too for cholera because people were dying to bacteria based in the water. Chlorine played a part. They haven't really changed things. But I think if you go down on that legal versus necessarily legal chlorine, you'll that that they haven't. I think in that first bullet point, if the government hasn't updated guidelines for 20 years or whatever, I think I've done that somewhere in here.
Yeah, it says legal limits for contaminants in tap water have not been updated in almost 20 years.
So my point being is that you haven't updated for the soluble in water. the dangerous stuff that we can't see, can't taste, that is even, or that can't, quite frankly, really can't filter out unless you're doing a distillation or reverse, multiple reverse osmosis. One reverse osmosis, and so you're getting the soluble organic power. Sure. You find you ultraviolet light, ultraviolet grading, that distillation, you have to do a lot of things based upon what's in the water. And I don't believe you don't have to investigate more things, but I don't believe that your municipalities that are right now having a tough time meeting budgets in this economy that we're in are really peeling the onion and deep diving into what exactly is in our drink.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're saying that because I've heard a couple of times where people have actually talked to some of the people that doing this work, and they're like, "Yeah, we had a lot of bacteria, so we have extra chlorine in there this today." So that's what I'm smelling in the morning because some days are going to be higher, some days lower. So very interesting. Yeah. So the one of the things we should probably share with the audience is that your background, because this is not your forte, but you had a lot of experience with water in your actual career. So if you could share with the audience a little bit more about that. Not everybody needs that just to be able to come out here and look at. You could read in English that legal does not necessarily equal safe. So my goodness, we don't have to be an expert to be able to figure out that we're probably not getting everything we need cleaned out. But I thought maybe you could share a little bit about your background and help the audience know that, hey, you've got some experience.
Yes, well, nearly 45 years in the culinary degree, and living in different places in the United States, and then working over in Africa, and you know, I spent some time in Russia too. But the point being is that when you are, and I was on the production side, not on the drilling side. I mean, what that means is that once your well has been drilled, you will be producing a three-phase of fluid. In other words, you'll be producing hopefully a lot of oil in that three-phase, water, and gas. And the key is to separate those three phases so that you can sell the oil through the refineries and you can use the gas, hopefully, for other reasons. And then the water. A lot of times, an oil well will produce 90% water and 10% oil. You see the pump gas going up and down like this. And they'll continue to produce, but they're making a lot of water. And the company I worked for was a medical chemical company. Our was to be able to go to these well sites and to be able to clean up the water so that produced water can be used for other things. In other words, ranchers out there out west in the U.S. Wyoming, it's very dry. And water is a commodity. You get water, produce water, you're printing money. I think they are aware. And so Larry ranchers would come to me and put, where we really need, we got a pond here, a whole pond, and it's got some oil on the top or whatever, but we'd like to get use water to water our cattle. They're mostly ranchers out there. And we would like to take the salt out so that we could put it on the road, on the dirt road, so we could get dust control on the dirt road. So the key is the finite amount of water or God has given us, and we is to be able to reintroduce that water in a different manner instead of just disposing it in a river, disposing it in road copy. When the solution to pollution is dilution. And the old back in the 60s with the college group, if you just dilute it, we'll be fine. Well, what happened now with industrial rate of this country and other countries in the world is that's not the case. We're overwhelming our natural overwhelming. But I don't know if that kind of gives you
No, I think that's really good. I had no idea that they separated three pieces out of that. I'm thinking they're just pulling up oil and that's it. Probably most of our audience is thinking that. But then to have a gas that they could actually offload and sell. And then also to be able to grab water and put the water back into our natural resources in a healthy way is also pretty amazing. We talk about character skills, you and I, a lot, and one of those would be responsibility. And oh my goodness, here they're not just pulling oil out, but they're actually respecting our environment and putting water back in, and then using the gas for other productive things too. That's really amazing.
God is creating a world where a lot of these things, natural processes, take care of themselves. However, if you overwhelm it, like the human population has done, you have to really be a good steward, but you're scared wherever you're at. I'm hoping you are your space and water space when you farm.
Oh, it's an old Boy Scout thing, right?
Convenient nothing of the what the way it is. You I'm looking at our lake water here that we're on the road, and I'm putting some milk oil growth happening with witches and aggressive aquatics and merged aquatic weed. And it's I'm investigating what we can do to make sure that this lake doesn't go from a very clear sandy lake to a mucky eutrophic algae laden kind of place. So it's about being get still. And God's given us the ability of problem solving so that we can be good stewards to what He's given. I,
You and I are both Eagle Scouts, right? So we've had this experience from when we were very small, growing up in scouting, all the way to the time that we were awarded Eagle, of being responsible stewards with what God has given us and making sure that we give back, right? You go into a campsite, you leave it better than when you got there, et cetera, right? So the whole Scout oath and Scout law and motto all seem to drive back to this whole idea of character skills with responsibility and being a good steward of everything God has given us. So that's a great point that you made there, Kurt.
I think what really is with smoking people, when that government all our problems, you and I both know that's not going to happen. You have to take your initiative. Like you talking part that's in the way of a parking spot at the grocery store, instead of walking by it, move it over to put it where it could be. If there's trash on the ground or whatever, I want to walk this quick. Each little thing can make a big difference.
Lately, I've seen a couple of posts where people have like the world's highest violin player, best violin player, down in a subway someplace playing, and people just thought he was a hobo, right? But here he is playing some of this music in the highest quality, and people couldn't tell the difference between it and their hurry to get to the next place, right? We have to slow down. And as we used to say, smell the roses, right? There are so many things going on around us. How are other people? How are we treating them? What can I do for them? How can I help my fellow citizens and all that kind of thing? And I think we just don't have enough of that kind of mentality, that mental mindset anymore. And part of our reason for this channel is to help not only dig out the truth and the research, but also to help humanity, because there is a definite war against humanity right now. You can see it in AI, you can see it in the environment, you can see it in so many places, right? Environment, chemtrails, and the air quality, the water quality, their food quality now with some of the things they're putting on our fruits and our vegetables and things like that. Where are we at? And how can we stay safe? We've got to bind together as humanity to make sure that we've got an opportunity to be able to survive. And I think this channel that you and I are starting here now, and today is our maiden voyage, so that's fun, that we can get out there and help people to make a difference for them and give back to them some of what you and I have had an experience and our opportunities that the Lord has given us over our lifetime.
It's like you always say, well, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I'll people care what you know. Until then,
Yeah, and caring is a character skill. So we've got to get people out there the hope that they can survive and that they do have some kind of value, both in their personal life as well as what they can offer to other people too.
we love it now. But what created God doesn't expect us to be perfect. He created us for the humanity, and what He expects of us is to do our best. You know, we're like, hey, you're back with me. I'll help you finish something that make you being proactive instead of sitting back and just waiting to think that.
And even if people don't think they have a lot of money or a lot of material things, they still have their own talents and skill sets that are of value that they can offer to other people. And I was teasing my wife last night because of the Bible verse that talks about the number of talents that the Lord gave, or the master gives these talents to people, 10 and then 5 and 1 or whatever. And then what did they do with it? The one who had the least went and buried it, brought it back, and only gave back the same thing that he had gotten. Whereas the one with 10 talents and 5 talents multiplied those things, whatever those talents happen to be. And I think that's part of the responsibility as a steward of the Lord, as well as a steward of what he's given us here on earth. So I'm very excited about what we're going to be doing with the channel here, because we'll be touching on so many different things. We wanted to start off with water because I've seen a lot of posts out there from the different social media that say, watch the water. And oh my goodness, we've seen threats from tsunamis lately and all kinds of storms and floods and this and that. But we've got to get back to just, hey, where is the living water? And Christ is our living water. He's our hope. He is the salvation for humanity, ultimately giving us the greatest hope and life as well. We're never going to run out of water if we turn to him and we depend on Christ. So,
Well, we on the examples, the woman at the buck wall, leading one, leading girl. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited about this, Dan. I think you initiated, and I applaud you on that, and whatever I can do to compliment this podcast, I'm looking forward to.
that's awesome. We'll bring in some guests as we go along here, because you and I both know different people that are very influential in our world today. And I think that's important that we introduce those people to others and give them some hope and all of that. To wrap up, I just reemphasize what you just said there. Christ is the living water, and it will never dry up. It's an eternal source of living water that we can always drink from and never be thirsty. So, Kurt, you want to finish up in prayer for us today?
Let's think. I must be probably just like 45 minutes or so of great conversation. We know that you are feeling well to you. It's been you are responsible for all things good. Help us in our storms in life. We know that you're with us. You never leave us nor forsake us. And help us to be able to think according to be able to have the wisdom of Solomon and discernment to know right from wrong. And you're everything the world is. Thank you for your time. Thank you for blessing us so much, your family and friends. And in your son's name, we trade together.
Yeah, amen. Thank you, Kurt. It's been a great maiden voyage. So we're off and sailing now, bro.
Brother,
All right. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Friday, 10 o'clock Central.
great. Okay.